I got invited to play in one of the most stacked VGC draft leagues of all time. I'll be up against titans of the game like NAIC champion Federico Camporese, 3-time regional champions Michael Kelch and Justin Tang, and Single Battles legend Pokeaim, fighting over 10 weeks for a cash prize and ultimate bragging rights. Welcome to the MDBL.
Hello folks, and welcome to the semi-finals of the MDBL. We have gone through 8 weeks of group stages, after which I came out on top of the standings, but my placement in the standings doesn't mean anything now. It's just straight knockout for the next 2 rounds as we are down to our last 4 competitors. And in my semi-final match, I will be playing off against Mountaih, a person who did in fact beat me in the group stages early on in this draft, but my team has undergone a fair number of changes since then, so has his. So the outcome this time may be very different. We will have to see. But speaking of changes to my team, there was in fact another round of trades after the group stage is finished, with players being able to make up to 2 trades each, and I have shuffled around my squad a little bit. Now, this trade period is very different to any of the other times where I've been picking Pokemon for my team. So obviously, at the start of the draft, everyone is picking their teams 1 Pokemon at a time. You don't know what everyone's complete roster looks like. You're trying to build a team that's good into every other draft there. So you're trying to prepare for 11 other drafts that aren't finished yet, which means generally early on you're just trying to build a draft that is solid, that gives you a lot of options into a bunch of other stuff without getting too specific regarding which Pokemon you're trying to beat. And then in the first round of trades, it's slightly different again, where the field's narrowed down to 6 players. And at the start of the second phase, I knew which 3 players I'd be playing in phase 2, but I could have played any combination of players in playoffs. So I still had to prepare for all 5 drafts that were still remaining, plus an extra trade period where people can swap stuff around. So you're still being quite generalist with the trades you're making. But that is not the case this time around. This time around, there are exactly 3 other drafts left that you have to deal with, and I knew going into the playoffs who I'd be playing in the semi-finals, and who my 2 options would be for playing in the finals as well, so I could tailor my picks specifically for that. And the first part of that process was being able to figure out which Pokemon I wouldn't need from the draft I had before. So as a reminder, these are the Pokemon I had available to me before this trade period, and these are the drafts before the trade period of the players who I would be up against in playoffs. So looking at their drafts, I thought Brute Bonnet was not really going to be very useful. In fact, Brute Bonnet has not been that useful for me across the course of the entire tournament. I brought it to a few sets, it's won a couple of them, but it's never really felt that impactful. And yes, it's nice to have that pressure on your draft kind of team sheet, so to speak, of being able to threaten Spores and Rage Powders. Maybe that means that a Pokemon on the opposing team will go for Safety Goggles or Terra Grass or something to account for that. You can play around it a bit. But I found that just wasn't really worth the trouble, especially into the matchups that I'm potentially facing. So if you look at Mountaih's team, for example, Brute Bonnet feels almost illegal to bring into this. It just doesn't work. It gets hit for super effective damage by Urshifu, by Whimsicott, by Araquanid, by Kilowattrel, by Magmar, by Mamoswine, and by Altaria. And for Golden Go, I can't ever Spore it, and all it has to do is Terrastalize, and now I can't hit it with super effective Dark Moves, for example. I in fact brought Brute Bonnet to my first match against Mountaih, and it just didn't really do much. And it's a similar thing with the other 2 players that are still left in, that being Freezeye and Justin Tang. I've obviously played against both of those 2 before as well. Brute Bonnet didn't come to my set against Justin. I think it just wasn't really worth it into stuff like Chi-Yu, Sneasler, Iron Bundle. There's just a lot of stuff that hits it very hard. And against Freezeye, I brought it to 1 game because I was trying to use it to enable my Registeel, and it just got completely shut down by Freezeye putting a Safety Goggles Arcanine and an Amoonguss in front of it, and then there was just nothing I could do. So I don't think it's that useful in any of these matchups, nor has it been hugely useful over the course of this entire season. The other Pokemon I put up on the chopping block with a slightly heavier heart is Frostlass. I think Frostlass is a very cool Pokemon. I think for a lower value pick, it's done me a lot of service. I've brought it to a few sets where it's played pretty crucial roles. It's been very effective in what I've needed it to do. I even used it in one of my phase 2 sets against Keenan Campbell. It was very, very effective there. But unfortunately, despite how much work it's done for me so far and how much I like the Pokemon, it's just not very useful into the remaining matchups I have. So because I can be so targeted with my trades this time around, Frostlass unfortunately did find itself up for trade. And in their place, I have picked up Scyther and Sandy Shocks, two Pokemon that I think each have at least one very valuable role in one of the matchups I could face in playoffs. And let's have a look now at the matchup that I will be playing in the semi-finals against Mountaih and his Immunity Idols. So Mountaih has that same core we faced before of the Dark Urshifu, Goldengo, Whimsicott as that really offensive Tailwind core, alongside Mamoswine, which provides really strong offensive coverage. Those four Pokemon form a very strong Tailwind core that's very hard to sit in front of. Basically, there's just so much damage output coming out of those four Pokemon and so much good type coverage that it's almost impossible to just bulk your way through it. That core is then complemented by good support options like Araquanid, which is very good into my Trick Room mode with access to Wide Guard. It's slower than everything on my team apart from Torkoal, has access to very powerful water moves. Because of its water bubble ability as well, it resists fire, which means it kind of shuts Torkoal down reasonably hard. And then you've also got Magmar. So before my trade into Sandy Shocks, I had a bit of trouble breaking through bulkier fire types, and that's part of the reason I wanted Sandy Shocks there for that ground type coverage with Earth Power. But Magmar has the ability to redirect things away from the more powerful attackers, keep them alive for a little bit longer. One thing worth noting here is that if I did still have Brute Bonnet on my team, that Magmar would be almost forced, if it comes to this game, to go for Vital Spirit as its ability just to stop itself getting put to sleep by Spore. But now it has a little bit more license to maybe go for a Flame Body to try and punish all my physical attackers. Although that said, it could still go for Vital Spirit because I have run Yawn Torkoal on a couple of occasions, so that's something my opponent has to consider. We also have Kilowattrel, a Pokemon that is faster than pretty much everything on my team, booster energy notwithstanding, and has some pretty scary coverage of Flying and Electric, and the competitive ability which could potentially punish me for bringing my Tauros to this game with Intimidate. It also forms a kind of nasty Disquake pairing with Mamoswine. What that means is you'll put a Pokemon that's immune to ground next to a Pokemon using Earthquake, and the Pokemon with Earthquake is often a ground type, and that's immune to Discharge. So you can go for like Specs Discharge and Life Orb Earthquake with these two Pokemon next to each other and just do a bunch of spread damage. That's a bit risky to me because I do have multiple options for Wide Guard, which my opponent needs to be wary of, but it is an option they have that could be a little bit irritating. And then adding one more to the list of incredibly strong offensive Pokemon is Haxorus, with, I think, the highest attack stat of any Pokemon across both of our teams. And my team is not that fantastic defensively into Dragon types, so potentially a Scale Shot set could be very scary here. I do have Tauros for Intimidate, which is very nice, but that Scale Shot Haxorus could potentially be a bit of a threat. The last two Pokemon, I think, are more of an annoyance in the background than a real threat, certainly when compared with a lot of the other Pokemon on my opponent's team. But Stonjourner and Altaria could both potentially play a role in this set. Rock-type coverage is very effective into me, especially with spread damage on Rock Slide, getting around a potential Follow Me to hit my Trick Room setters like Armarouge, to be able to hit Torkoal pretty hard. Plus Power Spot is just a very, very strong ability to increase the damage of whatever is sat next to the Stonjourner. And Altaria is an interesting pick. It's one that Mount picked up, I think, because the other three people left in our top four all have Weather Setters. So I've got Torkoal, Justin's got Tyranitar, and Frieza's got Politoed, and Altaria's got Cloud9, an ability which shuts off all weather conditions. So it's an interesting pickup. I don't know how useful it will actually be, but on paper it's just something extra that we all need to consider when building for this. It's also got a slightly annoying set of moves. It's got like Will-O-Wisp, it's got, I think it can run Tailwind, it's got Brave Bird, it's got Draco Meteor, it's got Roost if it wants to keep itself healthy. So it could be a little bit annoying, but on the whole I'm not that scared of Altaria. I think Altaria is actually weirdly less fake than Houndoom is. There was a whole thing about Houndoom being fake. If you've not seen the video against Kian, that was a couple of weeks ago, I would consider checking that out. But I think Altaria is actually significantly less fake than Houndoom, just because it can sit in front of a lot of my Pokemon and spread Will-O-Wisp, which is very, very annoying. But that is Mountaih's team. Now let's have a look at what I am going to be bringing to this game. And first up is a Pokemon that I traded for specifically for this matchup. It is Scyther. Now, Mountaih's team has a pretty consistent weakness to flying throughout. Goldengo can obviously sit in front of flying moves reasonably well, but there's no other flying resists on this team apart from Stonjourner. And of the Pokemon that I think are likely to come to this game, like Urshifu, Whimsicott, and Araquanid all get hit by super effective damage and get one-shot by Dual Wing Beat through Focus Sash. Scyther also crucially has 105 base speed, which is notably higher than pretty much everything on Mountaih's team. And this will feed into a lot of the strategies I have planned for how to play this matchup. So there are only two Pokemon on Mountaih's team that will naturally outspeed Scyther, Tauros, Sandy Shocks, Walking Wake. And those two Pokemon are Whimsicott and Kilowattrel. Outside of that, my team is pretty much always going to be faster than Mountaihs. And so my game plan is going to be revolving mostly around getting Tailwind up myself, or matching Tailwind, because if we have matched Tailwinds, I have speed advantage now, which is not something that was true the first time we played each other, and that was the thing that I was really struggling with. Because his Araquanid is really, really good at shutting down my Trick Room mode, so the first time we played, I couldn't really lean into Trick Room that hard. He also had Hydrapple at the time, which he no longer has, but at the same time, because I had a massive gap in my speeds between, like, Roaring Moon and Gallade, if Tailwind was up on both sides, he still had the speed advantage there, so it was very difficult for me to position around that. But this time around, Scyther is running Tailwind, and I have the natural speed advantage. Scyther with an Eviolite is surprisingly bulky, so I've not really got a huge amount of defensive investment here in my HP and defenses, but this is still enough to take a banded Wicked Blow from Urshifu, for example, or an Icicle Crash from Mamoswine. It'll let me take an Overheat from Magmar. It'll let me take 2 Make It Rains from Golden Go, or a +2 Make It Rain from a Golden Go if they get a nasty plot up, or Specs Terra Steel Make It Rain from Golden Go. You know, you get the gist. Eviolite is a really, really broken item on a Pokemon like Scyther that already has good base stats. It's kind of crazy this thing was only 4 points in the draft. Like, this thing was worth less than Frostlass. But on top of that pretty solid bulk, it's got access to 110 base attack and 105 base speed, and the Technician ability. And crucially, Technician powers up Dual Wing Beat, which is a multi-hit move. Each of the hits is 40 base power, and that 40 base power gets boosted up to 60 on each hit. So it's effectively 120 base power flying-type move that hits through Sash, which, of course, hits very hard. I've not gone for a second stab move. Bug doesn't really get me anything here. Instead, I've gone for Thief, just to give me a way to hit Golden Go for a bit of extra damage. Plus, Terra Ghost, for example, is something that's reasonably likely into my team, given that I've got a couple of fighting types kicking around. And then Tailwind here, like I said, my strategy is going to be revolving around trying to win speed control through Tailwind primarily. I've got another option elsewhere on the team that we'll get to in just a second. And then Protect is always just a comfortable option to have in the last slot. Urshifu makes it a little bit weirder to try and play around, but still good to have once Urshifu goes down, or if Urshifu's not in the field, lets me stall out an opposing Tailwind, something like that. And then I've gone for Terra Fairy pretty much entirely because of the Urshifu, but it's also just a pretty solid neutral type into most of my opponent's team. Obviously, the Fairy does make me weak to Golden Go, but I'm weirdly not that scared of Golden Go with the Pokemon that I've brought. I've got Thief on Scyther that can hit Golden Go pretty hard. Walking Wake has Flamethrower to hit it. Sandy Shocks obviously has Earth Power. Tauros can hit it pretty hard and doesn't really take any damage. I'll get to that in a little bit. And then my Gallade this week is running Night Slash as well, which hits it very hard. So I'm not too scared of Golden Go, especially since the Pokemon I didn't bring include a Torkoal, an Armarouge. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that really threaten that thing. It's very possible it doesn't even come to this week. So for that reason, I wasn't too scared of going Terra Fairy there. But yeah, Scyther is going to be a pretty key piece in how I've planned out a lot of my lines into this matchup. And next up, we have got the second of our traded Pokemon and the second of our speed control options this time around in Sandy Shocks. I'm running a strangely bulky Sandy Shocks this week. So this Sandy Shocks is designed to be faster than Jolly Urshifu, even if I don't have my booster energy active. And it's also EV to survive a Banded Wicked Blow or an Icicle Crash from Urshifu or Mamoswine, respectively. That's part of the reason I've gone Terra Bug here, because if I'm Terra Bug, which is a type that obviously resists ground, that incentivizes my opponent to go for Icicle Crash more than it does High Horsepower. Icicle Crash is a slightly weaker move. I can live the Icicle Crash. I can't live the High Horsepower, at least not reliably. So having that Terra there does incentivize my opponent to go for Icicle Crash a little bit more, which maybe comes up in situations where I can squeeze a survival out of Sandy Shocks in a position where I otherwise wouldn't. Probably not going to be the biggest factor, but seems like a reasonable Terra. I don't think Sandy Shocks is going to be my Terra target in a lot of these games anyway, so it's not immensely relevant. The main thing with Sandy Shocks is the offensive typing. So Earth Power and Thunderbolt hit my opponent's team very hard. So the ground type coverage hits Golden Go, Magmar, and Stonjourner for super effective damage, and then Thunderbolt lets me hit Araquanid for super effective, for example, while also giving me a good neutral option into Kilowatt Troll, which I think is much more likely to be running competitive than Volt Absorb, given that I do have a Tauros on my team, so I should be able to Thunderbolt that pretty safely. And then the last two moves, Flash Cannon gives me decent coverage into Mamoswine. It hits a little bit harder than any of my other options. Mostly it hits Whimsicott though, because Ground and Electric can't hit Whimsicott for any real damage, whereas Flash Cannon is going to be two-shotting pretty much every Whimsicott build in the game. And given that Whimsicott is kind of scary to my team, if you look at the 6 I brought here, it's quite Fairy weak, so having extra options into Whimsicott is pretty valuable. And then lastly, we have Electro-Web. So I mentioned this was secondary speed control behind Tailwind, and I actually get a lot of mileage out of Sandy Shocks here with the speed booster energy. So if I lead Sandy Shocks, for example, and my opponent doesn't lead Whimsicott, now that Electro-Web gives me speed control against anything. So I could put Sandy Shocks next to any of my other Pokemon, basically, and have speed control against anything on my opponent's team. On the flip side, if my opponent does lead Whimsicott, and I lead Sandy Shocks, then they want to set up Tailwind as soon as possible, and I can Electro-Web on turn 1, and survive pretty much any hit they're going to throw at me. And this Sandy Shocks with its speed booster active, is fast enough to outspeed anything on my opponent's team if it's at -1 speed, even if they have Tailwind up, with the sole exception of Kilowattrel. But I think Kilowattrel Whimsicott is not that likely. You could see some wind power shenanigans with Kilowattrel Whimsicott, but I don't think that's hugely likely. And if my opponent's board state is Kilowattrel Whimsicott early game, then I think my Sandy Shocks is just fine anyway. I don't even need to click Electro Web. But the key thing there is that because my Sandy Shocks is faster than everything, I can Electro Web then again before my opponent's Pokemon move the next turn. And that will then make my opponent's Pokemon slower than whatever is next to Sandy Shocks, because, as I said, I've got a natural speed advantage over pretty much everything on my opponent's team. It is a little bit risky not running Protect on this Sandy Shocks, but I think it is worth it to have access to all 4 of the moves that I have on this set. Next up, we are going to be having a look at Paldean Tauros, a Pokemon that's come to a couple of games so far, gotten me a lot of value since I traded it at the start of the second phase of this competition, and I think it is going to be very valuable once again this week. Something you'll notice is that both of my water types, we'll get onto Walking Wake in just a second, but both of my water types have opted for Terra Water this week, and that acts as a nice combination of both offensive and defensive value into Mountaih's team. So Mountaih doesn't really have a way of hitting water types that hard, with the exception of maybe Kilowattrel, because the rest of the team is hitting for neutral at best. Araquanid can't hit water types for any damage, nor can Magmar. Mamoswine can't really hit them that hard. Obviously you can high horsepower, but that's not that scary. Whimsicott could run a grass move, but that feels kind of risky into my team given that my draft has about 1,000 grass resists in it, and my opponent doesn't know that I'm not bringing most of them this week. So water ends up being a very good neutral typing in general. Lets Tauros sit in front of, for example, a Whimsicott Mamoswine lead and get some damage off. Why do I still have Wave Crash? Oops, that should be Raging Ball. I was considering Wave Crash for big damage, but Raging Ball for dodge and recall I think is slightly nicer in this situation. But yeah, the moveset here is Close Combat, Raging Ball, Aqua Jet, and Iron Head. And I'm running the Assault Vest item with Intimidate. Intimidate is so good into my opponent's team. So because Tauros is a fighting type, Urshifu Single Strike can't hit it very hard with dark type moves, and if I intimidate it, it's not hitting it very hard with fighting type moves either, because obviously its fighting type moves do not auto crit like Wicked Blow does. With the Assault Vest, I'm reasonably safe to sit in front of Golden Go. It's not threatening me that hard. It could Thunderbolt me maybe, but I'm not that scared of Thunderbolt. Tauros sits in front of Araquanid. It can sit in front of Magmar. Magmar can obviously go for like Will-O-Wisp or something that could be a little bit irritating, but sits in front of that with Assault Vest. I can take it from Kilowattrel. I take on Mamoswine. I outspeed it. I hit it with super effective water moves and fighting moves. Haxorus, I Intimidate, which is super valuable because, as I mentioned before, I don't really have that many ways of slowing Haxorus down. Tauros resists rock, so Stonjourner's not doing that much to me. Like, Tauros is a really, really valuable Pokemon in this matchup, I think. And one of the reasons I think it's very likely that Kilowattrel does come to this match. The moveset I don't think requires a huge amount of explanation. Close Combat hits a couple of things on this team for super effective damage and is my strongest move. Raging Bull gives me water coverage, which is nice into Magmar, lets me hit Golden Go neutrally, lets me hit Mamoswine for super effective if I don't really fancy dropping my stats with Close Combat, lets me hit Stonjourner if that comes to this match for some reason. Iron Head's kind of similar to Flash Cannon on Sandy Shocks in that it just gives me something to hit Whimsicott, because Tauros, again, cannot hit Whimsicott with its stab combinations. That's about the only thing that Iron Head's actually doing here. Maybe there's a situation where I need to bail myself out with a flinch at some point, but hopefully not. And then Aqua Jet looks a little bit odd because I have my own Indeedee, which sets up Psychic Terrain, but I've not really found myself bringing Indeedee that much in testing. It's good. It certainly has value in this matchup, but I've not brought it that much, and having Aqua Jet into Pokemon like Kilowattrel that I can get down to low health pretty easily, having Aqua Jet into something like Magmar so I can pick it off with an Aqua Jet before my next Pokemon moves and hits the partner through Follow Me, hitting Mamoswine before it can Ice Shard something, picking off a Focus Sash, which is going to be somewhere. Like, there'll be a Sash on Urshifu or Whimsicott or Kilowattrel or Mamoswine, almost certainly. Plus, with Terra Water, I can actually squeeze quite a bit of damage out of that Aqua Jet if I really need to in a pinch. So it's a nice option to have, especially if my opponent is getting Tailwind up and I somehow don't manage to get Tailwind up, or my opponent gets Tailwind up later than me and has an extra turn of it. Aqua Jet is just a bit of extra pressure into what my opponent's got. And then speaking of Indeedee, I'm running, again, very standard Indeedee. Indeedee's moveset is very shallow. It doesn't do very much. It's just very good at doing the things that it does. So I've got Dazzling Gleam, Helping Hand, Follow Me, Protect. I've not got Trick Room this time because, as I mentioned, I'm building my team almost entirely around positive speed control for this matchup. There's maybe a use case for it if I want to set up a Trick Room in front of an opposing Tailwind, or if my opponent sets up Trick Room, because Mountaih did run Trick Room Whimsicott last week next to his Araquanid. It's an option he has, but quite frankly, I'm not that scared of it because Araquanid doesn't really hit my team that hard. So I instead elected for that last slot to be Protect, just to give me an extra way of stalling out final turns of Tailwind. For example, if I can KO Whimsicott early, I can Protect through the end of Tailwind if Urshifu's not there. Or it just gives me mind games with targeting, where, you know, you could target my teammate, but then if my teammate protects and I click Dazzling Gleam, that lets me like break a Sash or get a chunk of damage down on Urshifu. But if you go after the Indeedee and the Indeedee protects and I swing with the partner, then suddenly that's a free swing for the partner. So it gives me some mix-ups there. Gone Terra Fairy. which I think is perfectly fine into this team. Similar reasons to Scyther, mostly to sit in front of the Urshifu. But also, I'm not hugely scared of Golden Go, and quite frankly, if my DD sat in front of Golden Go, then it's not doing anything anyway, so I don't think I'm ever terrestrializing it. Terra Fairy does also mean that Indeedee will one-shot Urshifu with Dazzling Gleam, which it doesn't do without the Fairy boost, so that's a potential option I have somewhere if I really desperately want it. Seems not that likely it'll come up, but it's there. And then I've gone for a Cobbler Berry, which halves the damage of a super effective Dark-type move, which lets me just tank a Wicked Blow from Urshifu, even if it's choice banded. The main thing Indeedee is going to be doing here, though, is going to be just supporting partners. So something like Follow Me, Dual Wing Beat to take out Whimsicott on turn 1, and then get Tailwind up the turn after and go from there is a very viable game plan next to Scyther. Helping Hand is nice. So Helping Hand Dual Wing Beat, for example, will KO Whimsicott even if they go for a defensive terrestrialization, unless they are insanely bulky on Whimsicott. Also sets up Psychic Terrain, which is pretty handy into things like Mamoswine and Urshifu, which can both carry priority moves in Sucker Punch and Ice Shard. Stops Whimsicott from clicking Encore, stuff like that as well. It's just doing the usual Indeedee stuff. One of the main beneficiaries of Indeedee's support, though, is going to be Gallade, and this Gallade I'm running very aggressive this week. So I'm running max speed Jolly Focus Sash Gallade. In previous weeks, I've generally gone for a clear amulet or a damage boosting item. I went for room service one week on Gallade. But again, my strategy this week is built so heavily around just getting speed control that going max speed Jolly and just maximizing speed and damage felt so worth it here. So the speed stat is actually really interesting here, and there's a couple of very specific reasons I've gone Jolly. The first of which is Mamoswine. Mamoswine speed ties Gallade, they're both base 80, and Mamoswine is a bit of a nuisance for my team. It's immune to Intimidate thanks to its Oblivious ability. It hits Scyther and Sandy Shocks for super effective damage with ice moves. It hits everything neutrally, basically, with ground moves, which is, again, very irritating. But I think it's unlikely that Mountaih is going to go for Jolly Mamoswine, and even if he does go Jolly and max speed, I still, at worst, have a speed tie, and if I've got terrain up, for example, they can't Ice Shard me. So I can just Sacred Sword it and do a chunk of damage. But the other interesting thing that this speed stat does is that this speed stat hits 145 as its stat, which doesn't seem like much. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but having watched back some of Mountaih's games, he doesn't tend to run Jolly Urshifu. That said, I do believe he ran Adamant Urshifu with enough speed to outspeed max speed Gallade in our first game, but I've not run max Jolly Gallade in any match at all for the entirety of I've not even run Jolly Gallade in any form for the entirety of this season. So I think it's really not impossible that Mountaih actually ends up dropping a bit more speed on Urshifu. Maybe you could drop it down to 133 speed, for example, because I think 132 at max speed Adamant Gallade is a benchmark you could aim for feasibly. And so this just lets me punish the Urshifu for going anything other than basically max speed Adamant. And even if it is max speed Adamant, I've still got stuff like Tauros and Scyther and Sandy Shocks and Walking Wake to outspeed it. So it's not the end of the world, but this just gives me an extra way to punish that if he does get a bit greedy with his speed stats. If not, Sash Gallade is still strong into a lot of this team. The other thing is I think it's very unlikely he's going to go Timid Golden Go. I think max speed Timid Golden Go is even more unlikely than Urshifu running that much speed. And so I can be pretty comfortable that my Gallade is going to outspeed a Golden Go if it comes to this matchup, which means I can just hit it with a Fat Night Slash before it moves. The other big thing is that I didn't really find any calcs that warranted going Adamant over Jolly. Gallade in a lot of cases is one of those Pokemon where if you're hitting something with a super effective move, it's going to faint. If you're hitting it with a neutral move, it's going to get two-shot. And that's kind of the case into most of my opponent's Pokemon here. So it didn't really feel worth it. I think I get a lot more value out of guaranteeing the outspeed, or almost guaranteeing the outspeed on Mamoswine, being comfortable in outspeeding Golden Go, having a chance to outspeed slower Urshifus, that kind of stuff. And then I have gone for Terra Psychic and Psycho Cut, which is interesting. I'm going Sash, so I don't really need a defensive Terra. Terra Psychic maybe gives the game away a little bit, that I'm running like a Sash or something like that. But Terra Psychic Psycho Cut lets me get Whimsicott, for example, if Psychic Terrain is up. So I found a lot of situations where I built the team and I was like, okay, well, I can go Helping Hand Psycho Cut and KO something and it's great. But then I'll have Indeedee next to Gallade and immediately I'll be like, no, I can't do that because I need to go for the Follow Me to keep my Gallade safe. So that just opens up the opportunity for me to go for Terra Psychic Psycho Cut to get KOs I otherwise might not be able to get. Again, Gallade's not a Pokemon I terror very often in practice, so we'll see if that ever comes up, but it might do. And then lastly, we have Walking Wake, who is just running a Life Orb. There's not a huge amount to say about this set. I've not got Sun, so I'm going Scold over Hydro Steam this week. They're the same damage, but Scold has a burn chance, which is incredibly nice into things like Mamoswine, into things like Haxorus, into Urshifu. It also means that I can break Sashes, potentially. Like if I Scold into a Sash Mamoswine and burn it, then I just get rid of Mamoswine, which is nice. And then Draco Meteor is Draco Meteor. I throw that at things and they faint. Flamethrower is good coverage into, again, Whimsicott. Whimsicott is a real issue for a lot of my Pokemon when it comes to hitting them with stab moves. So Walking Wake can't hit Whims very hard with stab moves, nor can Tauros, nor can Sandy Shocks. So again, got an option there to hit that. Also lets me hit gold and go for super effective damage, but it's mostly for Whimsicott. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I've gone Terra Water just because Water is actually a very good neutral defensive type into my opponent's team, and also powering up Scolds means that, for example, Terra Water Scold will pretty much always pick up Bulkless Urshifu. Walking Wake, again, not probably a priority Terra target in this matchup, but options there if I need it. That is the team that I will be bringing to my semi-final match of the MDBL. Now, let's jump into the battles. So, roughly what I was expecting. Top 4 I did say was going to come. I thought Arachne was going to be here, but it's not. We've got a double dragon at the bottom instead, which makes sense because my team is a little bit weak to dragons. But this is part of the reason I have Fairy on Scyther, which ends up being very handy here. So with no Kilowatt Troll, I think it's really not a terrible idea just to go Tauros lead. I think like Tauros Scyther seems fine. Tauros Scyther. I've got to be worried about the Altaria though. Altaria with Will-O-Wisp is a real problem. Altaria is Fairy, that makes sense. Maybe it's Indeedee then. Maybe it's Indeedee Scyther. The problem is that really struggles into Dengo lead. Whereas Tauros at least gives me some options with that. I think then like Shocks Gallade. Makes the most sense. Let's try it. This is feeling like a very Fairy Scyther kind of game. So Urshi is Poison. Dengo is Water. That's fine. Whim's Hacks. Okay, that's actually super fine for me. Attention to items. It's Unnerve. That makes sense. And Clam. Okay. Okay. Unnerve. That's fine. I think I'm content just to... Do I set Tailwind this turn? The problem is this could be Dragon Dance, in which case Tailwind is actually a bit of a wasted turn. I don't think they're ever swinging a Scyther here. I'm just going to Wing Beat the Hacks, and then... What's the terror on Hacks? Steel. Yeah, I'm happy to... I think I'm happy to just Wing Beat and punch it. That's Tailwind, yep. Breaking Swipe. Okay, interesting. Swipe. That's fine. Oh, that's bulky. Holy shit. Okay, I don't... Does combat get this? It might do. I don't... no, it probably doesn't, does it? Have a look. Okay, good job, Tauros. So that's... Haxorus. Well, the problem is they get free switching now, which is a bit annoying. And Whims was game 1 lead. We've seen Whimsy has Tailwind. We've seen Clam and Swipe. Okay, so Tauros is suddenly significantly less good, noted for game 2 and onwards. Mamo comes in. That's expected, I guess. Yeah. I think I have to get Tailwind up here, right? I think I'm fine to just Tailwind and... What's the Terra on Mamo? It was Terra... Whoa. Mamo is Terra... Fairy, okay. Maybe need to be a little bit careful about this. I could Iron Head for guaranteed damage. I don't know if I want to reveal that, though. I don't have a better option. I could just force the Terra here, to be honest. I think I'm fine to just Raging Bull the Mamoswine. Yeah, there you go, Terra Fairy, but that means that opens up my Shocks option in the late game. Okay. Terra Fairy. I will also go Terra Fairy. Fairies all over the place. Alright, Altaria is Terra Fairy. Yeah. And what else do we have? Ash, Poison, Gold, Water. Yeah, okay. And then Winds was Fire. Sure. Gleam. Tauros lives. What a beast. Crash. I will survive this from here. Yep. No flinch. That's huge. That's absolutely massive. Okay, good to know Whims is Gleam. Bit of chip damage on Mamoswine. Do we think it's Covert Cloak on Whims? Probably not, right? I'm more inclined to set Sash. Given that I'm inclined to set Sash, I might protect... Well, no, because if they're Encore, that becomes a problem. I could switch here just to get around an Encore. No, they Gleam here, right? I think I'm forced to protect. I break a potential sash on Mamoswine, which is nice. I'll protect here, and I guess I just jet Mamo for a bit of free chip, right? Put it close to potential flash cannon range. Let's protect, yep. If that's a jet damage, that's fine. Clean again, yep. Fine. Okay, Tauros maybe not the best option here then, given they've got Clown on Haxorus. Definitely changes things. Okay. So now I think it's Sandy Shocks. Because Sandy Shock gives me a fat flash cannon. And flash cannon should be enough to get rid of Mammoth here, unless it's like Assault Vest. It does seem to have a reasonable amount of bulk, though, is the problem. Based on how much the Tauros did to it. Flash cannon's doing 60 to 70, potentially. I'm not switching here. I think it's just Wing Beat into Wims and Flash Cannon into Mamo. Ugh, the other option is I just clear the Wims here, right? Am I willing to bet this Wims is not Sash? Oh, sorry, it's not Cobalt Cloak. Is there any reason to be Cobalt Cloak into me? Not really. I think I'm going to risk it. 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 Mamo goes out. Okay, that's big. That's big. That's big. That's big. What are they scared of? And who comes in? Altaria. That's interesting. Show me no Covert Cloak. Yes. Okay, good. And I hit. That's huge. That's so huge. Okay. Seemingly no Encore as well, which is good to know. No Tailwind for them, which is nice. I am an Aqua Jet range, which is not ideal. Are they maybe banded Mamoswine? They really could be based on how they're playing this. Oh, this Altaria is going to be annoying. I'm going to say I don't need Electro here. I think that's probably reasonably safe to say. How many times from Tailwind? One. Okay. Tailwind's just useless now. Do I just double down the Mamo? I honestly don't hate it. I'm not going to reveal Flash Cannon yet. Endure. That's interesting. Okay. Sure. Okay, Flash Cannon 100% would have got that, but that's fine. Sure, they take about 5 hits there. Draco from Altaria, okay. That was nothing. Okay, Altaria's a wet noodle. Noted. No more Tailwind, that's fine. Do I just swing at the Altaria? I think I actually protect and T-Bolt the Swine here. I won't go down to a shard from this range. So I think I can just keep myself alive this turn. Good T-Bolt here. Okay. Is that Custap? Oh, God, that's interesting. Go after my Scyther? No, you definitely go after my Sharks here, don't you? Okay. Interesting. That makes sense, I guess. If you're expecting TR, you can endure and then go for like a Custap Earthquake the next turn. Moonblast there. Fine. So you got Crash, Endure, EQ. Are we no Prio move on this Mamoswine then? Is that what I'm getting from this? That feels like the vibe I'm getting from this is no priority move. I think I just Thief the Guarantee and Psycho Cut the Altaria, right? It's my most damage into Altaria here. I don't think this Mamoswine has priority move. It might have Protect. It could endure this turn. It does endure this turn. Okay. So I'm going to lose Scyther here almost certainly. I think I'm okay with this. I think I'm just doing enough damage. That's annoying. Like a cut. Yeah, okay. Unless they're citrus. So they're not. Acro. Okay. Do they have Protect on Altaria? Moonblast, Draco, Acro. Brain says no. They're definitely not going to have it on Mamoswine, though. It's just, if they have... I might Scout. I'm willing to reveal Protect here to Scout. I think if they have Protect on Altaria, they click it this turn. And if they don't, then I win. I'll Protect. They get the double Endure. Okay, that's annoying. That says to me that they both don't have Protect on Altaria and or don't have Shard on Mamo. I think I'm fine with either. I'm going to Cycle Altaria here. Okay, fine. That's game. Because I'm pretty sure, based on how they're playing, they don't have Ice Cool. They don't have Ice Shard here. Yeah, Fairy Blast. Okay. We've seen that I am faster, and we have seen that they do not have a priority move. So now I win. Unless they are Max Jolly, this could be a speed type potentially, but I doubt they're going to be Max Jolly. Okay, good. Okay, literally 1 HP in game 1. Interesting. We learned a lot there as well. Oh, we learned Haxorus is Jolly as well, actually. That's interesting. This is Jolly Haxorus. Because it outsped my Taurus and my Scyther. So that is good to note. Urshi's Terra Poison, so I really feel like it's going to be like a Poison Jab, potentially like a Band or something. I'm guessing Whimsy is Sash. Would be my best guess here. Okay. Am I content to just run the same lead? Maybe not the same lead, but similar lead. I think saving Taurus for backend, given they've got Endure Mamoswine. Like, Aquajet backend could be decent. I guess I'm just not getting any value out of Taurus here, right? It's good into Urshi still. I think I like the Scyther lead here. If they go for the same lead again, now I know I can just go for Terra Fairy in front of them and get around the Breaking Swipe is not terrible. I could just go like Scyther Walking Wake. I guess that leaves me a touch weak to Whimsy. Maybe I just go Terra Fairy. And like... What do I even do there? Like, Terra Fairy's fine. I could go Wake. Yeah, I think Taurus just didn't feel that useful. I can kind of force my opponent to choose between setting Tailwind and getting damage on my Wake, and I think I'm fine with either. If I can burn their Terror early as well, that's great for me. I think I'm fine with this. Let's see. Let's see. Good thing is the Urshifu is not Pterodox, so then most they're hitting me with is Adamant Choice Band, which does not KO either of my front 2 mons here. Okay, they do go for Haxo again. That's fine. I mean, Gleam's not going to KO my Wake, so I can force a Terror out of Haxorus, which is nice. I think I just get rid of the Whims here. I think I just Terra Fairy, get rid of the Whims, Draco the Haxorus. I could read this and go for a Flamethrower. I could also Protect. It's not a terrible option. I really don't hate going Wing Beat Protect here, actually. I think Fairy Wing Beat Protect seems decent, no? Any reason not to Protect? I think I'm fine just to force the Terra here, honestly. If they Terra Steel, that's okay for me. Okay, no Terra from the Haxorus. That's good. Well, it's fine, I guess. Lead Haxo again. Lead Whimsy again. They do just go Tailwind, okay. They're just going to swipe. They do just swipe. Okay, this is the double KO turn 1. Impact on Scyther, Walking Wake tanks it. Well, I'm having to hit 2 90% accurate moves, so potentially not. But hopefully I should get at least 1. Okay, I get the Haxo. That's good. Haxo down. Crit. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that crit didn't matter. Boldly, I'm going to say that the Draco Meteor crit into the Haxorus did not make much of a difference. Come on, Scyther, this is important. Nice. Okay. Double KO turn 1 is big. Double KO turn 1 is very big. Like, the Draco there was fine for me, I think, because it's like, okay, pick your poison, right? You either burn your Terror or get sent to Valhalla. One of the two. And I think either situation is a fine outcome for me. Now it's a case of, can I get my Tailwind up with Scyther? And the answer, I think, is maybe. There's Mamo, okay. It is Shifu last. Okay, so they can't KO my Scyther here unless they double into it. Which I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine to just Wing Beat the Shifu and, like, Scald. No, I Tailwind here. What am I doing? I Tailwind here. I think I just... Do I stay in and Scald, or do I switch into Shocks? EQ Crash. I could also Protect. No, Protect myself doesn't do anything, yeah. I suspect I may get hit by Poison Move, but I don't think Poison Move will KO me. I think I'm fine just to Tailwind and go for a Scald here into Mamoswine. Like, it's still good damage, and I'm also threatening a burn. I just don't really want to switch anything in from my back end into this. A flinch here is potentially pretty bad, but I think Scyther's looking pretty well positioned now, right? It's going to be a Terra... I'm guessing it's going to be Poison Ursh, would be my guess. Yeah. They're going to go Poison Ursh. They're going to try and just KO my Scyther. There's the Poison Jab, yep. I mean, I'll tank this. I won't, it's Choice Band. Okay. Noted. Okay. Oh, no, Lord then. Okay, my bad. Let me get the Crash. Right. This is suddenly kind of difficult, because I don't have Protect on my Shocks. But I will most likely take a... No, I will take a Thingy Mobob. They're banded into Poison Jab. I know that for a fact. And I also know I'm taking an Icicle Crash here. So I think my game plan is... They could double Glade. If they double Glade, what's the game plan here? I think my game plan is always just double the Shifu, right? I think it's always just double the Shifu. Because then there's what? 2 more turns of Tailwind. They have to double either of my Pokemon here to KO. If they double Gallade, Sandy Shock should be able to just protect Flash Cannon for the KO. Because I'll take an Icicle Crash. And if they double swing at Gallade, then I have Sacred next turn. I think this is fine. Oh, we just eat that. Huge. Okay. They go EQ. They KO themselves? They do. That's game. Okay. I don't hate the play of just earthquaking yourself there. It's not the worst. But that'll be games. Now just protect the last turn of Tailwind and Sacred. One turn of Tailwind, right? One turn of Tailwind. And we protect. And unlike Urshifu, Mamoswine cannot hit through protect. So this is dead safe. And that, folks, should be finals. I don't think there's any way this goes wrong, because we know that, well, again, unless they're max speed Jolly Mamoswine, based on how much damage they're taking, I don't think they are. I think they've got bulk. So I don't think they're going to be max speed Jolly. So I should always be winning the speed war here. There's the EQ, yep, I protect. Tailwind goes down. Yep, there goes Tailwind. They don't have a priority move. I've seen all 4 attacks. And I Sacred. Sure. That's... Custap. No, I protect. I protect on the Custap turn. It's fine. Okay. Protect on the Custap turn. There's the Custap, yep. He plays for me being stupid and forgetting that he has a Custap Berry that I saw in game 1. I protect. Earthquake comes out, hits my protect, Custap's gone, and now I Sacred Sword, and now I win. And that's finals. Okay. Okay. Man, Gallade. What a unit. I love this guy so much. Of course he had to win both games. That's finals, baby. That's finals. Most stacked draft league of all time in VGC. And I'm in the final too. Man, I'm good. Terrafera Scyther. Dude, I'm telling you, for 4 points, this thing is crazy. Apparently people don't know this. I thought it was a relatively well-known fact, but all of the Scyther line have exactly the same base stat total. So Scyther, Scizor, and Cleavor all have the same base stat total. Like, Scyther has equivalent-ish stats to Scizor in terms of the totals. Well, exactly the same in terms of totals. But you can whack an Eviolite on it. And it gets Technician Dual Wing Beat. This thing goes nuts. Yeah, you get your spotlight, man. You've earned it. That's a steal for 4 points. And it did exactly what I needed it to. Destroyed the Whimsy through Protect. Through Focus Sash. Love that. Tanked so many hits. Like, it just ate Icicle Crash from Mamo like it was nothing. Like, I live the Icicle Crash, even if I'm not Terra. This thing is silly. I've got barely any bulk investment, and it just kind of lives hits. I'm actually interested what the roll was on that Poison Jab from Urshifu. Let's have a look. I think that was a roll. That does, in fact, always kill if they're, like, max Adamant Life Orb. Alright, ignore me. Either way, kind of crazy. They do need to go for the Terra to get that KO. Otherwise, it's not even close. But yeah, Terra Fairy Scyther. That thing, super cooked. It's super cooked. I didn't even click half its moves, but having that as a Tailwind option, I originally had double Tailwind with Roaring Moon as well in my first build I was using for this, but I was just clicking Scyther Tailwind so much more because it can just tank hits. Man, it's so good. I love this thing. This is my new favorite Pokemon. I don't know if it comes against either of my next round opponents, because it's kind of bad into, like, Sand plus Chew plus Iron Bundle, and also kind of bad into Basculegion plus Archaludon plus everything in the world. But, boy, even if it only turns up for one match, that was a hell of a match for it to turn up for. Scyther, you're a god. I'm so proud of you. Indeedee didn't get to do anything, and now Indeedee looks sad about it. I'm sorry, Indeedee. You were a great scare tactic. Just the existence of Indeedee meant my opponent just didn't put priority moves on any of their bonds, which is great for me. Like, we didn't see an Encore on Whims at any point, so I'm assuming it didn't have that. Well, you didn't really see it much from Whims, you only saw Gleam and Tailwind. There was no Ice Shard on Mamo. Urshi, I'm presuming, was Detect, Double Stab, Poison Jab, so no Sucker Punch there. It would feel weird to not have a fighting move into me, given that I've got a Roaring Moon that I could potentially bring. I felt like you gotta go fighting move somewhere. Or like Tauros, just be able to hit the Tauros. Sash Glade worked perfectly. Both games, there was just such a great layer of security of, like, I can take a hit here. It doesn't matter what the hit is. I'll tank a hit. And then going max Jolly as well. Again, I don't know what the spread was on Mamoswine. I don't know if they were Jolly, if they were max Adamant. Either way, max Jolly there was fine. I didn't lose any damage rolls for it. So max Jolly there was super nice. did a chunk of damage to Altaria. Mind you, I guess Altaria is not, good. Maybe Altaria is as fake as Houndoom, who knows. Tauros did pretty good. Clear Amulet Haxorus was smart, but the thing with Clear Amulet Haxorus is you're not running a Scale Shot, and that's the thing that's really threatening damage. I like the idea of going Jolly Haxorus with Breaking Swipe, though. That is intelligent, because I think Mount correctly intuited that I wasn't going to want to go Jolly on Scyther or Tauros, because I kind of want them to be dealing damage. And it's kind of a risk for me to waste my nature on going Jolly if he doesn't go for Jolly on any of his mons. So that was intelligent from him. Good call. I think if I were anything other than Terra Fairy Scyther, that would have been a lot more dangerous. So I think that call was very good from him. Didn't really get to see anything else on the Haxorus moveset. The fact that I was timid on Wake was nice there, because it meant I always knew I was outspeeding Haxorus, so that forced them to set Tailwind. If they don't set Tailwind, I Draco the Haxorus before they hit me, and Dazzling Gleam's not KOing. I still get the double KO on turn 1, and it's fine. Sandy Shocks did what I needed it to do. Game 1 got a pretty important Electro buff. Felt like Mount was hard focusing it, because he was worried that it was going to take a swing at him. And again, in Game 2, it drew so much fire, just because I'm threatening Earth Power into the Poison type. I do think the double up into Sandy Shocks was a strange choice. Well, I guess it makes sense. Oh, maybe there wasn't Detect on the Urshi then. Otherwise, do you not Detect EQ there? Trying to store up Tailwind? I guess in hindsight, that play I made where I doubled down the Urshi was really risky, because if they do Detect there and I double it down, I'm kind of screwed. Maybe that was a mistake. No, what it should have been there is it should have been Earth Power into Urshi and Sacred into the Mamoswine. Tauros, what are you doing? Speen! Speen! What are you doing, man? He's very excited about winning. But yeah, that should have been a Tauros. You've got to stop. Thank you. But yeah, that should have been Earth Power into Urshi and Sacred into the Mamo, because then, I mean, I'm getting a KO on one of them, or they're burning their own Tailwind turns. Yeah, I mean, everyone did what they needed to do. Opponent was very prepped for Tauros, which makes sense, because I think Tauros was very scary for their team. So it did make it a little bit less good in Game 2 once I found out the information that I did. I did mention the Clear Amulet Haxorus. I think Mount had some other really interesting ideas. The Mamoswine with Custap is super interesting, because I'll tell you, the reason that is there is because he was using that as part of his check into Hard Trick Room. I thought he was going to lean very heavily into Araquanid. I was surprised Araquanid didn't come, but it does make sense now, because he did bring stuff that threatens my Trick Room mode reasonably hard, and one of them is Custap Mallow. So turn 1, like, I get Trick Room up. Then turn 2, he endures. I slap him with a couple of moves. He lives on 1, then next turn he just slams an EQ. Which, mind you, probably wouldn't actually KO a Torkoal if I did have a Torkoal there. But the idea is super interesting. I do like that. It gets around potentially both forms of speed control I could bring, to a degree. But again, the issue with Custap stuff is that when so many things are running Protect, you can just Protect. You can maybe position Urshifu to punish Protects if you're going for Custap stuff. But yeah, once you know the trick. I probably should have intuited it was Endure Custap from Game 1, honestly, because there's no reason to run Endure over Protect. I was wondering why it was Endure over Protect, and quite frankly, if I had thought about it for more than about 3 seconds, Custap's kind of the only reason. Because we didn't see like a Salak Berry or a Lychee Berry or anything like that. So probably should have figured that one out at the time. But once it was revealed, it didn't make a difference in Game 1, and once it was revealed in Game 2, it's just a case of I just Protect on the turn, I know Custap's coming and I'm still fine. The Altaria set was interesting. Like, it does just get Brave Bird. I don't know why. I presume it was itemless acrobatics. I don't know why he didn't just go Brave Bird. I feel like Citrus Brave Bird is just always better than itemless Acro. Mix-up Moonblast Draco, Acro. I don't even know what the last move would be there. I'm surprised I didn't see Will-O-Wisp coming out from the Altaria. I really thought that if he was bringing Altaria, he was going to be bringing Wisp. The Altaria is Terra Fairy, so it's not going to be running like Water Terra Blast or anything like that. Which could be an option. What does Altaria get? Hold on, I need to look at Altaria's moveset. Does it get Earth Power? It doesn't get Earth Power. It gets EQ, that's not very useful. Does it have any way of hitting Torkoal? No. It does get Rain Dance. Oh, it may have been Rain Dance. No, but then it's turning off its own weather. Well, I guess the rain is still up once the Altaria is gone. So that might not be the worst idea. I don't know. Either way. Could have been an interesting idea. I don't think it was very impactful. If you're running a full offensive set on a Mon, which has 70 in both of its attacking stats, I just do not think that's worth it. And I was correct that Goldengo was kind of scared away from coming here. Because, like I said, I was hesitant to put Terra Fairies on my Pokemon when I first started prepping this matchup, but then having played it a couple of times, Goldengo was just never really a factor, and I was correct that it just didn't come to late game there. It just felt like it was too easy for me to shut down. Like, AV Tauros sits in front of it. Scyther's got Thief, can deal some damage to it. Sandy Shocks is obviously battering it. I've got Night Slash on Glade. I've got Flamethrower on Walking Wake. And in general, just having 2 water types and an electric type makes it very difficult for that thing to operate, because if it's not slinging out steel moves, it's kind of not doing much. And it can't really sling out ghost moves because I've got an Indeedee. Yeah, all in all, everything went pretty much exactly as I was hoping. Like I said, Scyther did great work. The plan of just matching Tailwind and being faster once Tailwind was matched ended up being super good. I think that was absolutely the correct call here, because my opponent does have a lot of anti-TR options. I really, like I said, thought Araquanid was going to be one of them, but we didn't see it. My opponent clearly had some other interesting stuff in mind. Could have also been like Water Terror Blast on gold next to Cloud9 Altaria. Could have been something. I don't know. But yeah, game plan was good. Executed it well. Scyther went crazy. I think most of the tech I put on my stuff came up, apart from the steel moves on Taurus and Shocks, and the everything on Indeedee, because that didn't come. I mean, I got a lot of value out of the Sash on Gallade. I got decent value out of the AV on Tauros. Tanked a Dazzling Gleam at -1 from about 70%, which was great. Would have got more value out of Electroweb on Shocks if my opponent had played it a little bit differently, but that ended up being fine anyway. And then Tailwind on Scyther was the big one. That got me so much value. Terra Fairy Tailwind on Scyther was crazy. Oh, the other thing I was very happy with was intuiting that Wims was not going to be Covert Cloak on this team. This harkens back to the before times, where in actual competitive sets at tournaments, we had to play close team sheets and try and figure out what our opponent's sets were. But looking at my opponent's 6, it felt like it made sense for the Sash to be on Wims. It also didn't make sense for it to be Cloak, given that I've not got, for example, Fake Out anywhere on my team, apart from, I guess, technically on Indeedee, but I'd have to run no Psychic Terrain and Fake Out. And there is no way they run Covert Cloak to cover specifically for that. And other than that, I've not really got any secondary effects kicking around. So that was, I think, smart from me to correctly intuit that that was not going to be Covert Cloak and go for the Electroweb in Game 1. I was very happy with that play. That was some Draft League stuff right there. But yeah, that is going to be all for this week. And next week is on to finals. One more game left, win or lose, decides it all. I can't wait to see who I'm playing, because I actually don't know yet. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. All the support is appreciated. And also comment anything. Just comment literally anything. Engagement's great. Comment if you think Houndoom or Altaria is more fake. Which is the fakest of the 2 Pokemon? Is it Houndoom or Altaria? There you go. Spark a war in the comments. And if you want to keep up with more competitive content, not on my YouTube channel, I keep forgetting to plug this, but go follow me on Twitch as well. I live stream, or at least I try to live stream every day during the week, so Monday through Friday. I am going to be getting back into more VGC content on stream now. Reg Eye Ladder is back up. Champions will be here Champions will be here in just over a week as of when this video goes live. So if you want to keep up with some more of me, go follow me on Twitch. The link to that will be in the description of this video as well. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next week for the MDBL Finals. You don't want to miss that one. Bye-bye.